Let go of her. The words were quiet, but they cut through the ballroom sharper than the crystal clinking against 300 wine glasses. Damon Wells did not let go. His fingers stayed wrapped around Victoria Cross's wrist, like her silence was permission. "Excuse me," he said, turning slowly, amused. "I don't think you understand who you're talking to." The man in the gray maintenance uniform did not blink. He did not raise his voice. "I understand exactly who I'm talking to," he said. The ballroom went still. Somewhere near the stage, a microphone crackled softly. Damon laughed, thin and forced, the kind of laugh rich men use when they've lost control of a room and don't yet know it. "You're going to lose your job over this," he said. The man in the uniform checked his watch. Then he looked toward the elevators. "Sir, my daughter is presenting her science project in 12 minutes. I'd rather not waste any more of them." That was the moment the room went quiet for the right reason. Not fear, not money. Because a poor, single father in a faded uniform had just defended the coldest, richest woman in the building and then walked away from her without asking for a single thing in return. Victoria Cross was 36 years old, the chief executive officer of Cross Meridian Holdings, a company with towers in 4 cities and a reputation built on precision, control, and an emotional distance so consistent that the business press had stopped calling her focused and started calling her cold. She wore the word without flinching because she had built it herself, brick by brick, after a man once used her softness as a spreadsheet entry. That was 7 years ago. She had not cried in public since. Tonight was the Ellison Foundation Gala, a fundraiser for children's education programs, the kind of event where Victoria's presence alone raised $4 million before the first course was served. Damon Wells was a board investor who had spent 2 years treating her rejection as a negotiation still in progress. Tonight, he had simply stopped pretending otherwise. And then a stranger in a maintenance uniform stepped between them, and everything about the evening changed direction. His name was Marcus Reyes, though almost nobody in that ballroom knew it. To the donors, he was the man fixing a flickering stage light. To his daughter waiting upstairs beside a cardboard science project, he was the only person in the world who mattered. Victoria watched him walk away from her toward the staircase, unremarkable in every way that men usually tried so hard to be remarkable, and she felt something crack quietly behind her ribs, in a place she had bricked over years ago.
"Mr. Reyes," she said, testing the name from the small patch on his shirt. He stopped. "Walk with me," she said. Damon laughed sharply behind them. "Victoria, you cannot be serious." She did not look back. "I am." Marcus hesitated just long enough to make it clear he wasn't following power blindly. "Ma'am, my daughter is upstairs." "Then we'll walk that direction," she said. The answer surprised him. It surprised her, too. They moved through the wide carpeted hallway outside the ballroom, past framed photographs of the hotel in its earlier decades, brass lamps throwing warm light over both of them. Victoria rubbed the faint mark Damon had left on her wrist, not because it hurt, but because it reminded her how many polite cages had been built around her in the language of concern. "You didn't have to do that," she said. Marcus shrugged. "Maybe not, but somebody should have." "Did you know who he was?" she asked. "No," Marcus said. "You knew who I was." "No," she answered. That landed harder than any compliment she had received in years. She opened her small clutch and pulled out a checkbook, clicking a pen with the practiced efficiency of a woman who had solved every uncomfortable moment this way before. "Then let me thank you properly." Marcus looked at the checkbook, then at her, not insulted, not tempted, only tired in a way that had nothing to do with money. "Please don't do that," he said. "You don't even know the amount," she said. "That's not the issue. Most people would disagree. Most people are allowed to." The elevator chimed softly, but neither of them stepped inside. "Are you always this difficult to reward?" she asked. A faint smile touched his mouth and disappeared. "Only when the reward feels like a receipt," he said. The words embarrassed her because they were true. She had been trying to file his decency into a transaction, to make it safer, cleaner, easier to understand. "Then what do you want?" she asked. Marcus looked past her toward the staircase, where children's voices echoed faintly. "I want to see my daughter explain why her cardboard hotel can survive a power outage." Victoria blinked. "That's her project?" "Emergency design," he said. "Backup lighting, safe exits." She built it with cereal boxes, tape, and more confidence than engineering school ever gave me. There was quiet pride in his voice. It softened the hallway more than the lamps did. "Her name?" Victoria asked. "Sophie," he said, checking his watch again. "She gets nervous if she can't see me in the front row." Victoria closed the checkbook slowly. For the first time that night, she did not feel chased, cornered, or priced. She felt witnessed by someone with no interest in owning the moment. At the top of the stairs, a small girl in a yellow cardigan stood beside a cardboard model of the hotel, its tiny windows cut from cereal boxes, its emergency exits marked in red marker, its roof patched with silver tape. Sophie Weyes searched the crowd with brave eyes that were beginning to lose their courage. Then she saw her father. Her whole face opened. "Daddy, you made it." Marcus crouched without caring who watched. "I told you I would." "You're late." "I know," he said, "but not gone. Never gone." Victoria looked away before the ache in her chest could become visible. She had spent years in rooms filled with men who promised forever with champagne in their hands and escape routes hidden in their contracts. Marcus promised presents with grease under his fingernails and a tired smile, and somehow it felt holier. Sophie noticed her and straightened with sudden politeness. "Hello, are you here for the showcase?" Victoria opened her mouth, then found herself answering not as a chief executive, but simply as a woman. "I think I am." Downstairs, behind the polished doors, Damon Wells was already making plans with the calm cruelty of a man who knew how to turn humiliation into paperwork. He pulled the general manager aside near a service corridor. "Your maintenance man accessed the stage panel during a private event," he said. The manager hesitated. He was assigned there. "Then assign the blame correctly," Damon said, his smile returning, colder now. "The security feed went dark for 2 minutes tonight. Donors saw a disruption. Miss Cross was placed in an uncomfortable position. I'm sure your insurance carrier would find that interesting." Within minutes, 2 security supervisors were told to pull Marcus's access logs. A technician loyal to Damon slipped through a lower maintenance door and unplugged a relay from the security cabinet, leaving just enough evidence to look careless, not criminal. A report began forming before Marcus even knew there was an accusation against him. Upstairs, Sophie flipped a small switch, and her cardboard hotel lit along its tiny hallways with a soft amber glow. A few parents clapped. Marcus clapped the loudest. Victoria did too, quietly, touched by the simple grace of a child building safety out of scraps. Then, Marcus's radio cracked at his belt. "Reyes, report to security office immediately." Sophie's smile faded. Marcus lifted the radio. "Can it wait 10 minutes? A pause. Then the manager's strained voice. "No, now." Victoria felt the warmth leave the hallway. She did not yet know that the next hour would test everything she had built her life to avoid feeling. An attendant appeared at Victoria's side, murmuring that her legal team needed her downstairs, that something involving building security required her attention. She looked at Sophie, who was still glowing from her small triumph, and at Marcus, whose jaw had tightened with the practiced patience of a man who had learned to carry bad news without letting it show on his face. "Go," Marcus said quietly. "Sophie and I will be right behind you." Victoria hesitated. "You don't have to get involved in this." "I already am," he said. "Now let me do mine." She swallowed and nodded, following the attendant toward the stairs. The lobby lights flickered once, not fully out, just enough for every adult in the room to look up. Marcus heard the sound before anyone else understood it, a faint click from the relay cabinet, then the dead tone of a camera feed dropping. One screen went black, then another. Damon's face did not change, and that was what gave him away. Victoria's phone buzzed in her clutch. A message from an unknown number. Lower garage, now. Come alone unless you want the story public by morning. She stared at it a half-second too long. Marcus saw her expression shift. Don't go down there, he said quietly. You saw the message? She asked. I saw your face, he said. Damon lifted his chin nearby. This is absurd. But Victoria had already started walking, not toward the elevator, but toward the service corridor beside the security office. Marcus followed. Miss Cross, I'm not hiding in my own building. That's not hiding. That's choosing the door that keeps you safe. The corridor smelled faintly of warm dust and old wiring. The lights hummed unevenly. Victoria moved quickly, anger carrying her faster than fear, until Marcus sought a small dome camera above the laundry turn and stopped. Its indicator light was off. That camera was working 3 minutes ago, he said. A door clicked somewhere ahead. Footsteps sounded slow and deliberate just beyond the bend. Victoria's breath caught. Marcus opened an old fire stair door at his left. This way, he said. That stairwell is closed for renovation. Not closed, not forgotten. They slipped inside as 2 men in dark jackets passed the corridor beyond them, speaking low into their phones. Nothing happened loudly, no shouting, only the terrible quiet of a trap missing its mark by inches. At the bottom, Marcus opened a side door into the employee lot, where cold night air rushed in and the city lights trembled on wet pavement. Victoria leaned against the brick wall, breathing hard. How did you know? She asked. Marcus looked back toward the dark corridor. Because good buildings tell the truth when someone's trying to make them lie. She stared at him, seeing not a poor worker, not a convenient hero, but a man whose mind moved through danger with discipline and grace. You keep saying the building tells the truth, she said. Most maintenance men don't talk like that. A faint sadness crossed his face. Most maintenance men know more than people think, he said. That's not an answer, she said. He gave a small nod, accepting that. For a moment, only the wind moved between them. I used to design systems like this, Marcus said. Victoria blinked. Security systems, integrated safety networks, access control, camera routing, backup power, emergency lighting, hotels, hospitals, schools, a few government buildings. His voice stayed plain, without pride. 12 years ago, I had my name on contracts people fought to get into. Then why are you working nights with a tool belt? She asked. He looked down at his hands, rough, lined, marked by work that never made headlines. Because my wife got sick, he said, and the company I worked for didn't understand school pickups, hospital rooms, missed deadlines, or a little girl who needed her father more than I needed a title. Victoria said nothing. The answer was too honest to interrupt. After Rebecca passed, Sophie stopped sleeping unless she knew I was in the apartment. Big jobs meant flights, late calls, 20-story buildings in other states, so I chose smaller work, night shifts, local repairs, enough to pay rent, enough to be there in the morning. He looked at her, and there was no shame in him, none. People call that falling behind. I call it keeping a promise. Victoria felt those words settle somewhere no compliment had ever reached. All her life, men had presented ambition as proof of worth. Marcus had given up applause for bedtime stories, boardrooms for school mornings, recognition for presence. It was not failure, it was sacrifice with no audience. And it made her think for the first time in years about her own walls and why she had built them so high that even kindness needed a maintenance badge to get through. Her phone buzzed again. A message from her chief legal officer. Emergency board call in conference room A. Damon is claiming employee misconduct and executive instability. He is asking for temporary control authority. Victoria stared at the screen, the cold inside her sharpening. He's moving for control of the company, she said. Marcus's eyes hardened, not with anger, but clarity. Then he needed tonight to make you look emotional, and me look dangerous, and the building look unsafe. Yes, she said. The side door opened behind them. The general manager appeared, breathless. "Ms. Cross, Mr. Wells is demanding your presence upstairs. The board is assembling. He says either you address the security breach now or he will." Victoria closed her phone. For 1 second, she looked like the tired woman from the ballroom, chased, cornered, surrounded by men who mistook patience for weakness. Then she stood straighter. "Marcus, can you prove what he did?" He glanced toward the hotel, then toward the second-floor windows where Sophie's science showcase still glowed faintly. "With the access logs, the temporary camera feed, and the relay timing, yes. Will you stand beside me?" she asked. He hesitated, not from fear of Damon, but because a father always measures duty against the child waiting upstairs. Victoria understood before he spoke. "Sophie can come too," she said. "Her model found the blind spot before any of us did." Marcus looked at her, surprised again by respect offered without condescension. He picked up his toolbox. "All right," he said, "but we tell the truth calmly." Victoria almost smiled. "Is there another way?" "There is," he said. "That's how men like Damon do it." Together, they stepped back into the hotel, not as a chief executive and a poor single father, but as two people carrying the same quiet weapon, truth. Conference Room A sat behind a wall of smoked glass above the ballroom. By the time Victoria entered, board members were already seated around the long table, some in tuxedos, some in loosened ties, all wearing the careful concern of people calculating risk. Damon stood near the presentation screen, calm again, polished again. He paused when he saw Marcus enter behind her with his toolbox in one hand, Sophie beside him, holding the cardboard model against her chest. Damon gave a short laugh. "Victoria, surely this isn't your response to a corporate emergency." She did not sit. "It is." Damon looked around the room, inviting disbelief. "You brought the maintenance man and his child?" Sophie's hands tightened around the model, but Marcus leaned down and whispered, "Stand tall, sweetheart." She did. It reminded the adults in the room that innocence does not need a title to belong near the truth. Damon clicked the remote, and Marcus's employee photograph appeared on the screen beside a list of access alerts. At 7:52 this evening, Mr. Reyes accessed restricted equipment. At 7:54, security feeds failed. At 8:06, Ms. Cross disappeared from monitored areas during a donor event. These facts suggest employee misconduct and impaired executive judgment. A board member frowned. Impaired? Damon lowered his voice, pretending sadness. "Victoria has been under pressure. Tonight, she allowed a staff member to interfere with a guest, followed him into service corridors, and now brings him into a board meeting. I'm asking for temporary control authority, only to protect the company." Victoria felt the old trap close around her. The same language again: protect, stabilize, control. Marcus stepped forward before anger could do her speaking for her. "May I use the screen?" Damon smiled. "Absolutely not." Victoria turned to the board. "He may." Silence passed through the room like a key turning in a lock.
Marcus connected a small tablet from his toolbox and opened 3 windows: access logs, camera timestamps, and a wiring diagram of the building. "This is my code," he said, pointing to the first entry. "But this door reader was offline when the log was created. A dead reader cannot authenticate a living person." A gray-haired board member leaned forward. Marcus tapped the second window. "This temporary camera near the old laundry hall recorded the actual access. The person used a physical override card, not my badge." Grainy footage appeared. A man in a dark suit, a silver flash at his wrist, a familiar posture. Damon's smile thinned. "Speculation," he said. Marcus nodded once. "That's why my daughter's model matters." Sophie placed the cardboard hotel on the table, her voice small but clear. "The blind spot is here, but the emergency strip sees the reflection from this hallway."
Marcus gently turned the model so the board could see the tiny amber lines. Sophie had recreated the building accurately enough to show what the main system missed. When the relay was pulled, the backup path light stayed on for 12 seconds, long enough to reflect the person's face in the brass panel outside the laundry door. He clicked once more. The image sharpened. Damon Wells's face appeared in the reflection, pale and unmistakable. No one spoke. Not the board, not the manager near the door, not Damon. The room that had measured Marcus by his uniform now measured Damon by his silence. Victoria looked down the table, her voice steady, almost gentle. Mr. Wells attempted to frame an employee, manipulate a safety incident, and use the confusion to seize control of my company. Damon opened his mouth, but no sentence came out. Marcus closed the tablet without triumph. Sophie reached for her father's hand, and in that quiet room above the glittering gala, power finally changed hands, not from one rich person to another, but from arrogance back to truth. Damon Wells did not leave the room with shouting, because men like Damon rarely know what to do when shouting no longer works. He stood at the end of the table with his perfect cufflinks and a face that had gone empty under the weight of proof. The board chair removed his glasses slowly. "Mr. Wells, until a formal investigation is complete, you will have no authority, no access, and no role in this company." Damon looked at Victoria as if she might still rescue him from the consequences he had built with his own hands. She did not. "Security will escort you out," she said, not coldly, not cruelly, but with the calm of a woman returning to herself. "And Damon, don't mistake my silence for weakness again." No one moved for a breath. Then the door opened, and Damon walked out past Marcus, past Sophie, past the people who had once feared his money more than they respected the truth. When the door closed behind him, the room remained silent, not with the awkward silence of the ballroom, not the frightened silence of a scandal, but the silence that comes when a room full of powerful people realizes that a poor single father, a little girl with a cardboard hotel, and one honest act had protected what money could not. Victoria turned to Marcus. For the first time all night, her voice trembled. "Mr. Reyes, I owe you an apology." Marcus shook his head gently. "You don't owe me anything." "Yes," she said, "I do. I doubted you because I've spent too long expecting people to disappoint me." Sophie looked up at her father, then at Victoria. "Daddy says people can forget to trust when they've been hurt." Marcus closed his eyes for half a second, caught between embarrassment and pride. Victoria smiled softly. "Your daddy seems to say a lot of wise things." Sophie nodded. "Mostly in the car." A small laugh moved through the room, and with it the night finally began to breathe again. Later, after statements were made, locks were changed, and the gala ended quieter than it began, Victoria walked with Marcus and Sophie back to the second-floor showcase. Most of the tables had been packed away, but Sophie's cardboard hotel still glowed faintly under the amber lights. A blue ribbon had been taped beside it, marked in her teacher's handwriting, "Best Real-World Design." Marcus knelt beside his daughter, and this time, when his eyes filled, he did not hide it fast enough. Sophie hugged him hard. "We fixed it, Daddy." He kissed the top of her head. "You fixed the part no one could see." Victoria stood a few feet away, no longer feeling like the richest woman in the building, only the loneliest one learning how warmth looked from the outside. Sophie turned and held out the ribbon. "Miss Cross, do you want to see how the backup lights work?" Victoria stepped closer. "I would love to." Weeks later, Marcus was offered a position leading safety design for Cross Meridian Holdings, but he accepted only after Victoria promised flexible hours for school pickups, science fairs, and pancake mornings. Respect came first, work came second, and somewhere between coffee in the lobby, Sophie's endless questions, and quiet walks beneath city rain, Victoria stopped feeling chased and started feeling seen. Not owned, not rescued, Seen. Because love, the kind that heals instead of takes, does not always arrive with fireworks. Sometimes it wears scuffed boots, carries a toolbox, keeps its promises, and teaches a cold woman that dignity is not loud, but it can silence a whole room. If this story touched your heart, tell us in the comments what moment stayed with you most, and whether you believe quiet kindness can still change someone's life. Thank you for watching the whole video.